Welcome to the collision of faith, politics, and culture. I'm Jared, and you are watching Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Sanity. Today, we're going to go over revolution. What's a Christian's role in revolution, if we have a role, and kind of some of the background on it. So thanks for joining, and here we go. So, hope you guys had a Merry Christmas. Something I've been thinking about. Sadly, I think we're getting to a point in this country where these discussions and these thoughts are going to have to happen. And I think if we're not ready as leaders in our community and leaders in our hopefully churches and leaders in our family, if we don't know what we think on these issues, it's going to get really tested. And so the time to figure it out is not in the middle of the test, right? So we're going to go over kind of what is government? Are we called to obey government? Kind of some of the background on that, and kind of where I think some people have kind of missed the boat on it. So first, we're going to jump into where everybody jumps in on obeying the governing authorities, right? Romans 13 is kind of the catch-all. People over, at least from my, what I've listened to on it, they take Romans 13, and we'll read it right here. It says, every person is to be subject to the governing authorities. There's no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. Therefore, whoever resists authority has opposed the ordinance of God, and they who have opposed it will receive condemnation upon themselves. For rulers are not a cause for fear for good behavior, but for evil. Do you want to have no fear of authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise for the same. For it is a servant of God for you for good. But if you do what is evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword for nothing. For it is a servant of God, an avenger brings wrath on the one who practices evil. Therefore, it is necessary to be in subjection, not only because of wrath, but because of conscience. For this, you also pay taxes, for the rulers are servants of God, devoting themselves to this very thing. Pay to all what is due them, tax to whom is taxes due, custom to whom custom, respect to whom respect, and honor to whom honor. So if we just take that as everybody, no matter what, must obey the governing authority. I think it lacks some historical, precedent, right? Like look through, let's say, take Jesus. He was kind of a good example for Christians, right? Jesus walks into the temple. First, he makes a whip, right? Makes a whip. It takes a few days to make a nice whip. So it's a premeditated action. It's not flying off the handle. He makes a whip. He goes into the temple. I can guarantee you there was a mandate that allowed those money changers to be in the temple. They were legally there. They weren't illegally there. And yet Jesus, not being in subject to the Jewish authorities, flipped temple tables. And I don't think he was making a lot of friends. I also do not think he was obeying the law, but he was obeying God's law, right? There's a difference. There's, Acts 5, pull this up, 5:27. And when they brought them the same before the council, a high priest interrogated them, saying, we gave you strict orders to not continue teaching in his name, and yet you've done it. But Peter and the apostles answered, we must obey God rather than man. And so, they were in disobedience by preaching to the governing authorities. But they said, we obey God, not man. And so I think the caveat really needs to be made is that when government and God contradict, you always take God as a Christian. And the same can be said, right? Like the Holocaust was legal. There was laws. It was legal. It was illegal to hide Jews. And so just because something is illegal does not make it wrong. And just because something is legal doesn't make it right. And so I think that's where we have to use kind of the, let's say the five, use our senses and our spirit and understand, what is an authority. And also, I think this also needs to be made. What is the role of government? Let's look back to Romans 13, right? It says government is there to punish evil and to praise good. It doesn't bear the sword for nothing, which could be another video on the death penalty, why it may or may not. Anyways, so we are called to obey government, and this is what the definition of government is. And so I think for me, caveat needs to be, if a government, what is government there for to do? And also, I mean, what is government, right? Like if me and my neighbors decide in our neighborhood you have to put up Christmas lights, and I mean that is a form of government, right? Like HOA is a form of government, the county is a form of government, the state is a form of government, the federal government is a form of government. So I can't say obey all governments no matter what, because that just doesn't work, because there are governments that make things legal that obviously are wrong, and there are governments who punish the righteous. And so when you're punishing the righteous, when someone, let's say, some of this COVID stuff, if a man does not provide for his own household, he is denying the faith and is worse than an unbeliever, right? That's if government tells me I can't provide for my family, do I obey government or do I obey what God told me to do? You make your decision. I know where I stand on that. So I think once we understand what the role of government is to do justice, love mercy, walk humbly with their God. That's our role. Government is there to punish evildoers. If they are not punishing evildoers, if they are enforcing evil laws and they're exalting the wicked, and I think they've become an illegitimate government. And I don't think I'm called to obey and pay. Like if somebody's going to take my tax dollars and incinerate Jews, I don't think that Romans 13 applies to paying for the incineration of Jews. I personally don't. The interesting argument is once they start using our tax dollars to fund abortions, where we are with that. I think that's something we better figure out real quick too. And this is, I don't want to make it a long video. Jesus was willing to go against this authority, right? He was willing to do it, and he did it because he followed a higher law. So I think for me, I need to figure out where my higher law is of God. And this is the interesting caveat. Even if you disagree with the founders, and I spoke to a well-known pastor that I have a lot of respect for on this, and his view was that the founders, anyways, he didn't know if Romans 13, if you could honestly say taxation without representation was a legitimate biblical reason for rebelling and revolting against the English. However, where we find ourselves is a little bit different spot, right? You look at the text of the Declaration of Independence, right? It says that this is one of our founding documents. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government. So we kind of have it out in the United States because our founding documents, our government is built upon the principle of abolishing. I mean, look at this is Idaho State Constitution, right? Article 1, Declaration of Rights. It says, all political power is inherent in the people. Government is instituted for their equal protection and benefit, and they have the right to alter, reform, or abolish the same whenever they deem it necessary. So if the Constitution says I have the rights to abolish the government if it becomes counter helpful to the means for which it's called to do, I'm actually obeying. It's kind of weird, right? I'm obeying government by abolishing the government that is in contradiction to it. Kind of a little bit of everywhere. But anyways, we need to figure out as Christians where we are. And I think we need to take a stand. I think we need to wake up. I think sometimes we've, as the church, have really remained passive on stuff because we don't know what we believe. We don't know, I've had people tell me, oh, well, if I were in the Revolutionary War or Civil War, I would have done this. You don't know until you're there. But guys, we're getting close to having to draw some lines in the sand, right? I've seen people drawing their lines now for some of these COVID laws, right? Like if government shuts down my livelihood and makes my children starve, am I just going to let them starve? I don't think I do. I think I am called to a higher law. If my neighbor is trying to feed for his family and the authorities that be want to come and they want to force his family into starvation, into what am I going to do? Am I going to sit by and say, well, at least I'm not a Jew getting, thrown in that railroad car? I don't think I'm called to do that. I think I'm called to open my mouth. Proverbs 31:9, open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the afflicted and needy. I think we're called to that. I think, the time's coming. So make up your mind. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Thank you guys, and I hope you have a great day.